My name is Mariella Marie, and it's been a while since many of you have shared virtual space with me. So I'm really excited to roll into this next hour. I've got one of my partners in communication. I don't want to say partners in crime because we are all about this nonviolent communication work, this liberation work. So I've got my partner in communication on the line with me that I'm going to pass the mic to in just one moment. But in the meantime, just want to go over some quick housekeeping guidelines so that we can all feel comfortable and confident in this next hour. I see that we've got a lot of folks joining us live here in the Zoom room. I know we're also streaming this on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you're here in the Zoom room with us, please feel free to drop in the chat now. Let us know where you're calling from. I would love to give you all a shout out here. I'm calling from Patagonia, Argentina, the original lands of the Mapuche people. I see we got Missouri in the house. Thank you, Colleen, for dropping that in the chat. So go ahead, Kentucky in the house, represent, awesome. Go ahead and drop in the chat. Let us know where you are calling from so I can give you all a shout out here. We can really see where we are in the world, and maybe that can also help us speak to some of the questions that you all have submitted previous to this conversation here. Oregon representing, Mexico in the house. What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining. All right, so just to go over these quick housekeeping guidelines, we would love for you to participate. So you're already dropping things in the chat, so feel free to continue to drop in the chat. We also would love to hear from you if you've got your own tips and tricks or resources to share. You know, we don't hold all of the knowledge, and this is one of the beautiful things about having these conversations in communities, that we can share knowledge, and knowledge is power. So please drop any resources that you want to bring to the table here. You can also use this time to connect amongst yourselves in the chat. I'll be dropping ways that you all can get in touch with me. Also, my partner in communication will be dropping links for how you can communicate with them as well. So if you all are interested in doing some, networking while we're talking about this really chewy topic, go ahead and drop either your preferred way of connecting. It might be your LinkedIn, it might be your email, it might be your website, any social media. And of course, please be respectful as you reach out to each other. So we're clearly all here for one reason, that we're all interested in this topic. So I just wanted to extend the invitation for you all to drop in the chat, your preferred ways of connecting. Now we are recording, we're all here live, but you will have an opportunity to rewatch this so that you can vigorously take notes or share this with your people so that they can also, tap into the knowledge that we're going to share here today. So be looking out for a rewatch email from Power to Fly, as well as from Matthew Reynolds, who I'm going to pass the mic to in just a few moments, and myself. We will be sending a link where you can rewatch this and share it with your folks. And also we'll give you an opportunity to connect with us on our personal projects so that you can either, sign up for our newsletter or just participate in any workshops and things that we've got coming up. And again, write in the chat whenever anything comes to mind. If you have anything that's a touchy topic and you want to remain anonymous, you can either write to me privately or to Matthew Reynolds privately. You also see some Power to Fly folks in the chat as well. You can write to any of us privately, and we will raise your question or your reflection and keep you anonymous. So just want to let you all know that you can feel free to share what you'd like as well. So I see folks are already dropping LinkedIn's and ways to connect, so continue to do that. And without further ado, I'll just briefly introduce myself before passing the mic to my partner in communication. I love that. I just came up with that on the fly, and I think that's perfect for today's conversation, partner in communication. So again, my name is Mariella Marie. I'm calling from Patagonia, Argentina, the original lands of the Mapuche people, as I said before. And I am a lot of things. It's really hard for me to define myself in, one title, which we can dive into a little further later. I'm sure many of you might be in that same conundrum. But for the sake of today's conversation, and in general these days, I say that I'm a liberation facilitator, and that means a lot of things. One thing that I like to focus on is reminding all of us that we are all creative beings, that we are all artists in our own way. And it's just a matter of peeling off the layers that, we have been, that our social surroundings have asked us to put on in order to hide the fact that we are creative beings. So I like to work with folks so we can take those layers off and reconnect with our creative essence, our inner artist, and then work from there so that we're not, creating the same things over and over again and getting ourselves into the same kind of trouble. So I like to focus on the voice and the power of the voice, emotional intelligence, things like that. I like to, pass the mic and lift voices up, interview people, do things like this where I am moderating and facilitating questions and answer sessions, facilitating authentic dialogue, things like that. So I love to be in front of the camera and behind the camera. I'm a multimedia producer focusing on social impact productions. And if you're interested in learning more about me, you can go to thepositiveforceteam.org. That is my project. I'm the creative director there. Again, that's thepositiveforceteam.org. You can also go to Grow Dialogue and see some work that I've been doing over there with Dr. Sunjata. So I'll drop my email actually in the chat for those of you who are joining us. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to send me an email and just tell me about yourself or learn about more of the things that I have to offer, feel free to connect with me there. All right, without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to my partner in communication, Matthew Reynolds. I had the honor of meeting this beautiful, beautiful being a couple of years ago, and we have just been, holding hands in this journey as we grow and learn and continue to learn together. I don't live stateside. I'm originally from the States, but when I did have an opportunity to go to the States, I went to visit him on the big island of Hawaii, and we shared space and we got to hug and dance. And so I just love working with this person, and I look forward to passing the mic to him over the next hour. So Matthew Reynolds, tell us a little bit about yourself for those of who have not heard about you and tapped into your work. Why do you do what you do? And anything else you'd like to share to kick us off today?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Excuse me, but thank you. I got a little choked up there. Mariella, it's always truly a blessing to share a space with you and for Power to Fly to invite me in and be able to have this space, this time to be able to share with one another. And I'm being called a little bit right now to just kind of be in the space. I shared with you and Paloma before we got on that there's just this joy that's like bubbling up inside me, and it's teetering on being a little bit manic. I haven't had too much caffeine today. I've had my green tea and I've been sipping on it for a couple hours now. So I know it's not that. I think it's just the energy of the time. It's the energy of this big old blue full moon that we just had, and the energies of other things that are happening in society and culture and that are happening globally. I think all of that's just kind of crashing inside me, and I want to be present for everybody here. So if everybody would join me and just kind of get to the edge of your seat if you can. Make sure that if we think about our pelvis, we have these bones down here, and in the dancer world, we call them sit bones or cis bones. And we kind of want to sit up on top of those. We don't want to stick out our tummy. We want to make sure that we're pulling that tummy in and lifting through the top of our head as we're sitting there. And then we just want to think of our lungs as three-dimensional beings, right? They're something that when we breathe in, a lot of times only the upper part of our chest moves. Our lungs are ginormous. Our rib cage covers our lungs, right? So we want to think of filling them up from the bottom up. We want to make sure that we're expanding forward and out of our back as well as we take a deep breath in and out. We're going to take another deep breath in and out. So if you notice, my shoulders aren't moving with my breath. My stomach and my back are moving opposite away from each other, expanding in this way, and my sides are doing that too. And so this time we're going to take another deep breath in. And as we take that deep breath in, we're going to clasp our hands here in front of us, nice and loose. And as we exhale, we're going to make a sound, and we're going to shake this back and forth as we exhale. And I know some of you are like, oh my gosh, you looked crazy. And it's like, yeah, of course, I can allow myself to be vulnerable. There's nothing at stake there. Most of you still have your cameras off. So this is one of those things, stepping into our conversation today. when we think of the ideas of being a leader or leading or stepping into something, I think one of the biggest things for me that comes up is that I'm willing to do it. If I'm wearing that hat of leader or leadership in a space with others, that I'm willing to model for them, I'm willing to do what I'm going to ask of them. And so it's really important for that vulnerability to be a part of our space, being able to show that I, as someone who is sitting in this role, has that hat on kind of thing, that I'm willing to be vulnerable through the fact that maybe possibly I don't have all the answers, like Mariella said, and I don't. I don't have anything to teach you if you're not willing to learn, right? And also, I'm going to learn just as much from you as you're going to learn from me. You're going to lead me just as much as I'm going to lead you. So if we have a circle of folks that I'm supposed to be leading, but I'm showing, modeling that each person is a leader in this circle, then we've got a pretty powerful group right here. Because at any point, being an expert in their particular area, being an expert in their own life and lived experience, and sharing that with us, that's going to make whatever your outcomes that you're trying to strive for that much stronger, that much more rooted, that much more grounded, and that much more led by humanity and not necessarily by productivity. So giving us a whole bunch of things there to throw in. And I know, Mariella, you were like, talk about yourself, bring things up. You'll get to know me as we talk a little bit more. Okay. So that's my welcoming in. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Mariella Marie.
Yes, thank you. I appreciated the coming to our bodies by shaking. I know, just because I know you a little bit more offline, Matthew Reynolds and myself are really invested in and interested in this somatic healing, what we call somatic healing, which is making sure that we don't just stay in our minds, right? Like, especially when we join Zoom meetings and we want to come here to learn and take notes, we have to remember that we are multidimensional beings, that we have minds and bodies. We are animal. We aren't just, all brains. So I love that this little shaking movement that got us in the space together. All right, so you all have submitted some great questions for this conversation. I just want to say, if anything comes to mind in the moment, feel free to drop those questions in the chat. If you did not get a chance to share questions ahead of time, we want to hear from you. So it's never too late to ask questions. You're going to see that the hour is going to fly by really quickly. So we'll start with this first question here. Now, of course, our topic, for those of you who don't know, who might be kind of jumping in on the last minute, we're talking about developing key essential skills for leaders. And just to like demystify that title even a little bit, because it's already a lot, I would just love to know, what our current audience here who's live with us, what do you feel are essential skills? I know that this word has been or this concept has been talked about for a while now, and luckily more nowadays than before. Historically speaking, we haven't been allowed to even share these kinds of essential skills and dive into them a little deeper. We were asked to like kind of check them at the door and not bring them to the workplace. But what does it mean, in your opinion? There are no wrong answers. We're all here to learn. Essential skills, what are they for you? And then also, I want to demystify this word that is the word leader in this title. If you've joined a previous chat where Matthew Reynolds and I have talked about how to show up and be your authentic self as a leader, quote unquote leader, we believe that we all have the ability to lead and to be leaders, whether you hold the title in an institutionalized setting or not. The choices that we make can invite other people to do certain things that we're saying. So, if you have kids, you probably see that more clearly, or if you're a teacher, you see that more clearly because you have, these young minds looking at you, these young bodies looking at you and kind of taking your lead, to coin the phrase there. But just, we all have the potential to be leaders. I know some of you on this call are thinking specifically about, the leadership role at work. And just to demystify that, we all have an opportunity to share our voice and to speak up in different spaces. And so just to be more inclusive there from the jump. All right, so we got some things in the chat happening here. I'm just going to shout these out here. So we've got assertiveness, read the room, know who, what the people you're your leading need: integrity, responsibility, authenticity, humanity-led accountability, truth, discernment, ability to be vulnerable and listen, consideration, transparency. Great. Resourcefulness. All right. Well, I don't think we even need to go on anymore. I think the conversation is done. We all understand. No, but I'd love to pick these apart actually, because communication, thank you for dropping that. Yeah, so many things to talk about here. And actually, this probably can just be a response to actually the first question that you all have submitted. I'm going to pass the mic to Matthew Reynolds for this question, but I think that some things you all have put in the chat speak to this question. So this one reads, based on your experience throughout the years, what makes someone a great leader? Matthew Reynolds, what do you think?
So I think that this is an awesome question, and the responses that people put it into the chat are like you said, Mariella, they're really feeding my response, because I had a response to this one, and now it's shifting. So thank you all for the spark. As I'm reading through things and seeing how many people still, have their cameras off, which is a choice, and I respect that and I honor that. I believe that for me, though, the core question that I ask in my work of offering Crafting Your Equity Lens, a tool for personal liberation, is this idea of how much of my thinking is my thinking? How much has the dominant culture indoctrinated me into responding in a particular way? So when a lot of folks think of leadership, when I used to think of leadership, when I first started teaching and being in the classroom, it was based on this hierarchical system that I'm going to climb possibly some ladder to get to maybe principal or superintendent or whatever I wanted to be, and that it was culturally given to me in that sense. And within that, though, comes this twisting of superiority, this twisting of who has power and who does not have power. And so then I think a strong leader has looked in the mirror and looked at themselves and been like, wait a second, where is this coming from? How do I define leadership? Am I wanting to be a leader because I want to climb some ladder of success and my ideas of what success is? So then am I projecting on anyone that's on my team my idea of success or my success? Am I hanging my success around their capabilities and what they're going to get done? So then am I saying things sometimes that might be a little more biting, a little more sharp, may come from a place of ego, may come from a place of narcissism, because I'm coming from this thought pattern of the dominant culture and I don't really see their humanity. I see me growing or climbing this ladder of success, right? So to be a great leader, I think we've sat with ourselves and really had that conversation. Why am I in this role? Who put me in this role? Did I want to be in this role? Right? And then the answers to that, I think, lead us into what is my definition of leader? What is my company or organization's definition of leader? And who am I supposed to be leading over? How many are in that team? What are their titles? What are their power structures? What do they have? And be able to really sit and ask ourselves those questions and think about that. Of course, after the moment of celebration, because I believe in celebrating ourselves and celebrating where we're at and how we've grown and changed and shifted, but to not stagnate and get into a fixed mindset of what leader is, I think that's the shift that y'all got in me already, just like from your responses and stuff. So thank you very much for that. Mariella, what would you?
I love it. I love it. And just from taking what folks are writing in the chat and incorporating that into your response, I think that hopefully we can do more of that as we listen to each other. One of the things I was going to say is, being an empathetic listener is definitely, in my opinion, something that makes someone a great leader. And you're talking about, just to put, I think naming things are important. So to talk about this power dynamic that you're alluding to work in a power with a scenario as a leader instead of power over and control, that makes a great leader, in my opinion. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, this, that would, this could take a whole hour to kind of dive into, but power with is leaning into things like collaboration, and not thinking that you have all of the answers and that people are, inferior, just because they don't hold your title or they don't come from where you come from. So there's a lot more to say about that, but I think intuitively, if we look at power with versus power over and control, we can probably assume which side do we want to be on, which side feels better to us, what side feels better to everyone in our community that we're leading. So along with that comes the ability to suspend judgment in order to incorporate new ways of seeing the world. So, again, this shifts the power dynamics. Instead of me as a leader thinking I have all the answers and what I say is, the end of the line, I think it's actually more fun and more inclusive to suspend my judgments, suspend my beliefs. I learned this beautiful concept and phrase with Dr. Sunjata, who works with authentic dialogue and things like that. But even saying that, suspending your beliefs, it's like, instead of like these are my thoughts and my ideas, and this is how I'm going to move up the ladder, and it's kind of very aggressive and very violent even to think of that. We can suspend our beliefs, we can suspend our judgments, and we can listen to other people in the room so that we can grow together. And I think that means then you'll have more people on your team essentially that will support you, and that you can trust in. It builds trust in that way as well. I think also what makes a great leader, taking ethical risks and not being afraid to fail. So Matthew Reynolds always says, fail represents first attempt in learning. And I love that. That has stuck with me since I met him. And I think it's fabulous because then it just it loosens things up a little bit, where we don't have to be afraid to fail. And I think that, depending on what culture we were brought up in, there is this looming fear of failure across the board, across sectors. And so just to demystify that, to take first attempt in learning, this idea of failing as a requirement in order to grow and to become a better leader there. So the last thing I'll say, because there's so much to say on this first question, but the last thing I'll say is what makes someone a great leader is having a holistic approach to data. I know that we live in a world right now where we're all about the data, and the data says this and the numbers say this, and we got to get that money and the numbers say this. But I really want to remind you all that qualitative data is just as important as quantitative data. And for me, that allows stories and voices to be included in your data, right? So, and of course, you have to do some personal work to make sure you're not including your bias in this qualitative data, but to know that, if we are in the business of doing business, we cannot do business without the people. We have to make sure that that the humanity is centered, and whether that means the humanity that's involved in your team or the humanity that you're selling something to, we have to include their stories. And so this qualitative data is so important to me. And I think that also makes a great leader. So yeah, that's a lot there, but thanks for the love in the chat. I see people are also dropping things in the chat. Let's move on to the second question here. So what challenges do you see leaders facing in his work environment, Matthew Reynolds?
Will you repeat that question one more time, please?
Absolutely. So what challenges do you see leaders facing in today's work environment?
Woo! Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what I have heard, and what has been topic of many a discussion, especially coming from being a high school teacher, right? So quick story, or quick concept, is the idea of, okay, generations prior, it's always been, oh my gosh, look at those crazy kids and the way they wear in their hair, or the clothes that they have on, or the music that they're listening to. Oh my gosh. And then at some point, it's whispered in their ear or yelled at them or forcibly told, you need to grow up. And here's your status quo box, and you need to fit in to this. And then you need to go. And I think because of the pandemic, because of of the pushback against those ideas over the years, we're seeing a generation right now that is like, wow, no, I don't want to be a part of that. My time is really important. Who I am is really important. And so this way of thinking that came prior of other generations of like, no, you should know what to do. This is the ladder that you climb. These are the steps that you take. You have to do this. You have to do these things. I think this newer generation is like, no, I don't have to do it that way. You might have chosen to do that, but we don't have to do it that way. There are other ways to do this. And I think they're coming into the workforce with this whole new concept of it. And there's those of us who have been in the workforce that are seeing this younger generation, and we feel empowered by that. And so we're starting to think, oh, wait, there is a different way to do this, right? So I think what a lot of leaders are facing is they're facing this real big upheaval of how do we run a business? Who is this for? Who am I making money for, right? Is it enough acolytes for me to work these 40 hours, 60 hours? In some cases, I used to average 82 hours a week when I was a high school teacher. I taught theater and dance, so I had shows and productions and things running after school stuff, but who was I doing that for? Now I can say I was doing it for the students, and 90%, yeah, but there's this 10% where it was like, I need to prove to others that I'm good in what I'm doing. I need to prove it myself that I'm good at what I'm doing. And then I go back to how much of my thinking is my thinking? What am I proving to other people? And those amount of times when those rehearsal processes got to a point where it was like, we're all just really tired. We had these long days. I wasn't necessarily in a very affluent area. So I didn't have like a parent theater group that would bring dinner into people. I tried to set aside homework time for those teachers who still believed in homework, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that mindset, things are really shifting on a cultural level, that people aren't going to college and then being told you have to grow up. Here's your status quo box to fit into. This is how you live your life. I think people are like, I feel passionate about this for a while, so I'm going to do this. And yeah, I'm kind of good at it, but it's leading me to this. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go over here. And there's not this mindset that I need to stay here for 30, 40 years. There's this mindset of I can go wherever I want because right now this interests me and I'm going to do this. So then how do we create that community so that people feel nurtured, that people feel a part of that community, that they belong to that community, that they are a part of that team, and that we can grow from there and get some of this qualitative or quantitative things done, but leading with our humanity first and foremost.
Yes, I love that. And you hit on something that I want to just highlight again, because that was one of my responses for this question. What challenges do you see leaders facing in today's work environment? I put isolation. So you actually mentioned being in community. So I think we're saying the same thing there. I see a lot of people isolated, not just people who have the title of some sort of leadership position at work, but this kind of snowball effect that isolation brings, right? And we forget that we are animals, we are mammals, we are human beings, and we are social people, we are social beings. And we need that. We need to be able to be in community. And I mean real community. I don't mean, the kind of superficial social media community that has its benefits, but I mean, coming together and talking and feeling safe and holding space for each other. So I feel that isolation is a challenge, and also a low emotional intelligence practice is a challenge. What is that? Emotional intelligence practice? Yeah, it's a thing, and it's a practice. And this is something that I'm very, very, very passionate about, is helping myself and others develop an emotional intelligence practice so that we remember that we are human beings, and that, it is not all up to the almighty dollar. Actually, the dollar is not almighty. We are. And so the shifting that paradigm. And so, also honoring our ancestors, because historically speaking, all of our ancestors, I don't care where you come from, have had to check their emotional intelligence at the door in order to be more linear and more efficient and more productive and more, I don't know, inside of the social norms. And so we have a big opportunity to not check that at the door now. We have an opportunity to ask people, what do you think about this? And do you have a story that can bring, some insight, a personal lived experience that you want to share? And then as a community, hold space for that person to feel comfortable sharing their intimate experience or their lived experience. That's really how we're going to change things. Also, it's about doing things differently. And I put another challenge that leaders are facing today is social amnesia, this collective forgetting. And what do I mean by that? There's sometimes I get just inundated with this, problem solving a problem. There's a problem. We're going to solve it. Check, move into the next. There's a problem. We're going to solve it. Check, move it to the next. And it's become such a linear, standardized test. It's like, this is what's happening in the world or with people. This is the problem. Let's solve it. Check. But we have some sort of collective forgetting that doesn't really allow us to solve that problem in the whole sense of solving the problem. Where in a lot of cases we're putting band-aids on a problem and not approaching the root cause of a problem. And there are a lot of things that allow for that to happen. Something as seemingly small as not allowing time to actually go to the root of the problem. So if we have 15-minute sprint meetings, how are you going to really solve a problem in 15 minutes? Even if you do it 15 minutes throughout the week. I mean, we have to hold space to actually get to the root of a lot of these problems. So this collective forgetting, this wanting to do things fast and quick, I find that to be a real challenge. And for a lot of our leaders, I empathize with them because we live in the way that we are as a society in our modern culture. We want things fast. We want things now, and so the counterbalance of that is to take our time and not see that as a detriment. We're not going to lose anything if we go a little more slow, and that might actually allow us to tackle the root cause of problems instead of solving it with a band-aid to move on to the next for the sake of, we need to finish this meeting quickly. We need to get the next, investor, and we need to show them that we're doing something. So, cutting out the superficiality of it. And I think that if we can all take a little bit more time to ask for these, what I call the B side of history, these stories that have been forgotten. You might need to go into, if you aren't a part of a marginalized community already, you might need to go into some marginalized communities and listen and bring your tea and share some tea and share stories. If you are a part of a historically marginalized community, also return to that community so that you can share and, share knowledge and listen to different stories so that we don't have this social amnesia. We might already have some solutions that fix the problem at the root cause, but and a lot of things that come to mind are, the indigenous peoples of the world have a lot of solutions to problems, but we're not listening to them. We are saying, something very specific to what I'm seeing right now living in Argentina. And I'll try to be as quick as I can. I'll drop a link for everyone to, do further study on their own. But, let me take a breath. So we live in a fast-paced world. And we want to solve a lot of problems, right? So there's this climate catastrophe, this climate crisis that's happening. And so we think we need to, move into a different kind of way of industrialization and feeding, using lithium in order to, create more computers and more electric cars and solar panels. But if you sat with some people who live in these communities where the mining is happening, you would see that it's actually not a positive impact. Maybe the positive impact is we get a computer on our table and we can do work more efficiently. But if we really slow down and make an effort to listen to more voices, we will see that, in the lithium triangle here in Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile, there are people that are being oppressed. There are people that are being violated. So that, the business sector, the global business sector has found the solution to our global climate crisis. And it's not actually a solution, in my opinion. It's putting a Band-Aid on the problem. It's actually hurting more people. So, and someone wrote this in the chat, this is also happening in Africa too. Exactly. So who is, is it worth it? Is it worth going this fast to check a box and solve a problem? Or should we slow down? And actually, leaders, we can say, let's take a breath. Let's listen to more stories. Let's do more qualitative research. Let's see how to shift the paradigm so that we aren't perpetuating this destruction that we're trying to get out of. So, I guess the thing I want to highlight there with that long explanation is that we need to slow down. And as leaders, we can find the value in slowing down instead of saying, no, we need to keep everything moving quickly because, the almighty dollar says we need things fast. So that's what I'll say there. Matthew Reynolds, do you want to respond, or did I move on to the next question?
Well, I want to respond. I love what you said, and I think that it's important to bring it in, right? And I think that a lot of times we come to something such as this and we want a quick fix. What can I put in today? I have a meeting with my team today. I haven't been reaching them in this way. I hope you answer my question so that I can get to my team. And I hope that you understand that a lot of the things that Mariella and I are sharing with you are so that you can be a bit more introspective and truly grow yourself as a leader and shift some of this outside stuff. And the answers are going to come to you. You know yourself and your team better than we do. And so having said that, Lisa, did I say your name right? Lisa? I don't think you can unmute, sadly. Am I saying it wrong? Yeah, my apologies. I just want to say my apologies for that. But you put in...
I can unmute. It's Lisa.
It's Lisa.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. You put in challenge for leaders, new definition of loyalty.
Yeah.
In my book, I have a chapter called loyalty versus integrity. And so I think a lot of younger folks are starting to realize that this idea of loyalty, be loyal to your country, nationalism, be loyal to your friends. Well, they want you to lie for them and say, oh, you were sleeping over at their house, or you didn't do this one thing. Or loyalty, they want you to stick up for them on Facebook when they're the ones who said what they said, kind of thing. And now I'm in agreement with some of the people that are holding your feet to the fire, and in agreement that I don't really necessarily agree with what you said, but I'm supposed to stay loyal to you as a friend. Right. And I think that loyalty has gotten this rap where it doesn't allow us to be in integrity with who we are. And I think a lot more of the younger generation and other folks are starting to truly wake up to this idea of, well, I'd rather be in integrity with myself, my moral compass, who I am, my belief system, than it is to be loyal to this company, this team, this whatever. And I think that the loyalty part of it that's been tainted, I think can be brought back in through that building of community. And so that it's not this idea of, I want you to pledge all undying allegiance to us or this product or what we're trying to build. It's like, no, I want your voice in this. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear why this is important to you. I want to hear what you're bringing to the team, how you're going to share that with everybody else, and asking them for their truth and being in integrity with themselves about that. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Speak your truth, right? And if we build that community, then folks will speak their truth. And then that's going to make whatever we produce that much stronger. And to be honest, probably more of it. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Matthew Reynolds. This next question, I feel like we can just slide over to the next question because you're going there anyway. What are the main skills leaders should focus on fostering? And just to kind of summarize what you were saying and also use it as a response to this question, redefining things, as Lisa was saying. And I'm a firm believer in that. A lot of the liberation work that I do really approaches the idea of decolonizing everything. Because again, as Matthew Reynolds was saying, how much of my thinking is my thinking? how can I get back to my authentic self and be a new kind of leader in this world that is asking for something new? It's asking for something, for us to do something new together. And so redefining things like success. I mean, and how do we measure that up with someone else's version of success? And we don't want to, condemn anyone else's definition, but we just want to hold space for new definitions to happen and to not weaponize them. So if we say loyalty, but then we use it as a weapon, well, we're in the same game. We're in the same soup, cooking up some, something nasty. And and what we're trying to do is the opposite. So we really have to check ourselves, and so that's what I would say is taking time to redefine things. What is success? Well, just to, talk about something I said before, maybe really leaning into qualitative research and not being afraid of that, not being afraid to fail, redefining failure. Instead of failure meaning you're out, you're done, you're dead, failure could mean first attempt in learning. And guess what? We're human. We're always learning. So that's okay. And let's, of course, as long as we're being respectful and no one is losing their life, because people are losing their life and being disrespectful on the other side. So why not, actually empower each other to see life as valuable, lean into nonviolent communication by redefining things. So yeah, I would also just say developing our emotional intelligence again. And one way, if people are kind of, what's the word, like, if that intimidates you, this word of emotional intelligence, because I know some people have actually probably weaponized that, and I wouldn't be surprised. It doesn't mean bringing all of your emotions and just, come into every meeting crying. No, it actually means knowing your voice, honoring your voice. And your voice is not just your speaking voice. When I go through my workshops with people, I ask folks to define voice as a first step. And it's beautiful to hear all of the definitions of voice. And that, in my opinion, your presence in a room or your absence is in a room is your voice. So, whether you're speaking something or whether you're actually there in your physical body or in a virtual space, you can bring your emotional intelligence by your presence, by the energy that you bring, by the things you have to say, by the things you stand up for or not. And there's a whole way to develop that, but it's a spectrum. Emotional intelligence is a spectrum. It's not this, standardized testing rating of, okay, you got 100 points in emotional intelligence, you're good. It's actually every day is different. And of course, everything that's going on in the world changes how we feel, how we see, what the priorities are in our roles and work. And so with that, our emotional intelligence has to be agile as well. So I'll bring this question to you, Matthew Reynolds. What are the main skills leaders should focus on fostering?
I think everything that you just said, right? Defining it for yourself, and then making sure that others have an opportunity to hone those skills within themselves. I'm a firm believer that, I am sharing knowledge that I have. Like I said before, if I can't come in saying I'm going to teach you anything, right? Because if you don't want to learn, you're not going to learn. So if you've got things that are blocking learning from someone because of maybe a microaggression that they said or did, that they came into the room and did bring their emotions to the room, and you felt affronted by that and that they were making it all about themselves when they weren't. All these variables that come into play that make us human, right? When we come into the room, if I don't have a safe space to nurture that, then it's gonna continue to just crumble. And so if I'm going, hey, I was asked to be in this position for these reasons, I have these skills. What are some of the skills that you're bringing in? What are some of the things that we can nurture with you? Because this person over here might be a great leader in their own right, but they don't do well speaking in front of other people. They don't have that. They can't get the words out. It blocks them in some way, shape, or form because of their lived experience. That doesn't mean that they're not a good leader, because they've got other aspects and other attributes, maybe one-on-one, they're a whiz, right? And they're dropping golden nuggets left and right to get the project growing and expanding into its biggest, fullest, and brightest. But just because they can't speak in front of other people doesn't make them a bad leader. So it's looking at our own definition of leader, the people who are on our team, their definition of leader, and honing those skills, nurturing those skills, empowering those skills that everybody's bringing in, so that this project that we're collaborating on has all these various diverse lived experiences that are just pulling and structuring and building that out into its biggest, fullest, and brightest. That's what I think is the strongest, what we can bring as a leader, is to make other leaders.
I love that you just teed me up real nice, because I was gonna crack open your book and ask you to speak a little bit about it. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot here. But you just said biggest, fullest, brightest, and that is the name of Matthew Reynolds' new book here. And Raul writes in the chat, because when we were speaking about failure earlier, and I know you've got a whole chapter dedicated to this, Raul writes, how to turn what's considered a failure into an asset or fuel for thriving. So, I would love, Matthew Reynolds, I'd love to hear you speak about this, and also, let us know how we can participate in, you've got some workshops coming up for this book that helps people crack into this topic. So take it away.
Thank you so much. What Raul is saying and what we've been talking about, I think it all builds on top of itself, right? So if my definition of success has been fed to me, and part of that success is a 4-year degree, and for whatever reason, I didn't finish and get my 4-year degree, then all of a sudden now, not only does this definition I was told, society, the status quo, tell me that I have failed, I may believe it as well. And maybe I wasn't supposed to get that degree or be in that particular field. Maybe there's other passions or other skills that I needed to build first before getting that degree. You see what I'm saying? That there's this mindset that we have that there's only one way. There's the right way and the wrong way, which leads us into this binary thinking, which is very linear. And then we were given this gray in between, right? But it's such a small perception if we look at all the rest of the possibilities that surround that linear right and wrong, good and bad. And what usually is out here is some of these failures. And then our trajectory, that end goal, and through one of those failures, our end goal might change and shift. And we actually learn through that failure that, no, we don't want to get to this. We actually want to go this way and get to this. This is going to fulfill all the boxes that we want checked at the end of this project, and then some, and go beyond it. But I never would have gotten there if I wouldn't allowed the failure to happen and wouldn't allowed us to examine that failure. So that's how we shift failure into something that becomes thriving. We never know what's going to be on the outer edge of that or on the outside of that. And that's why it's important at the beginning of any project, bring it all in. Yes, bring it all in. Let's talk. Let's build community. Let's structure who we are. Let's share who we are so that our emotional intelligence about each other, our boundaries can be set. Let's do some things let's take lunch together. Let's have this person pick today what we're going to do this week as a community group outing. Right. So we're going to go do karaoke because this person picked it. I hate karaoke, but we're going to go do it because this person picked it. Right. Or they want to go have food here, or they want to have a potluck, or they want to do these other things that are community building. And a lot of people are like, I want to keep work and home separate. Where do you spend the majority of your time, especially with an American culture? You spend it at work. So why not get together with those folks and build community and define what community is? That helps us to grow into our biggest, fullest, and brightest. And so what I've done with my co-author, Brittany Zorn, is we've put together a 12-week program. It's an hour each day, 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Mondays, starting September 11th. Registration closes this Sunday for it. There's a few spots that are left. I put the link in the chat. And go through the book from the foreword and the invitation all the way through chapter 11. And it's called Cultivating Your Biggest, Fullest, Brightest. So you'll define biggest, fullest, brightest for you and your lived experience. You'll have community. We'll be modeling for you how to build that community as the facilitators of this work, as the guides of this work, as the leaders of this workshop, right? This offering. So you'll get a lot from that as well. And also a better understanding of how much of your thinking is your thinking. Why do I respond the way that I do in certain instances? Do I have trust and community built that I can say to this person, I always felt a certain way when you came in, and I've sat with it and I've thought about it. And it's because you remind me of this situation that has happened in my past. And that's why I'm a little more guarded, or that's why I'm bringing this in. And to be able to have an environment, a community that you can actively do that and speak that truth, that right there is going to grow exponentially any project that you do. And so it's not, once again, as we stated before, there isn't this quick fix, y'all. What we're talking about is really shifting our consciousness, how we are viewing ourselves, and really allowing our authentic self to come to the forefront. And how that then is going to shift the way that some of these larger juggernauts, corporations, system of education, et cetera, how they roll out, and that the ones that are there might be outdated and dripping with colonization, which is all dehumanizing and not seeing each other's humanity. And we might start building the new now because we see it and we understand it, and we're going to restructure it so that 7 generations from now, they are truly thriving. They are truly living in a world where everybody's humanity is seen, and that humanity is leading, and not wealth and monetary and et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully our planet won't be dying anymore. Sorry, political soapbox. My apologies. And
Speak your truth. No, yeah, you don't need to apologize. Speak your truth. For those who might not be in the Zoom room, who didn't have access to that link, some folks are watching on LinkedIn and YouTube. Can you say how they can find this 12-week course that you mentioned that's with your book, and how they can buy the book as well?
Yes, it's all in my store on my website, mrrconsulting.org. So mrrconsulting.org, that's my website. And in the store, you can find that. And please venture through. There's a plethora of information and testimonials and videos and other things to look at to help you get an understanding of who you really are in all this work and what you're doing and what you want to leave future generations.
I love it. So we've got just a couple minutes left here, and I want to check in with our audience. And I'm going to pose this question to you all. Of course, Matthew Reynolds and I can respond as well, but I want to see, after we spent so much time together, we're, speaking what's on our mind. We want to hear what's on your mind here. So I think this is a really interesting question to wrap things up, and you all can feel free to pull from anything folks have dropped in the chat or things that we've said here in the past hour. So this question reads, when interviewing for leadership roles, what type of skills should we look for in candidates? So let's pretend each one of us are interviewing someone for a leadership role. What would you look for based on what we've talked about in this past hour, based on what folks have dropped in the chat as well? It can be one word. It could be, any kind of behavioral representations that cue you in, oh, this person really can hold space for different stories. Maybe that was my answer. So I'm just going to say my answer. I would see if this person has the ability to hold space for different voices to feel comfortable sharing their voice. And so that would be my response there. What do you all think? So I'll read the question again. Drop in the chat. Don't be shy. There are no wrong answers. When interviewing for leadership roles, what type of skills should we look for in candidates? So I'll give you all a couple of seconds. If you're joining us on LinkedIn Live or on YouTube, you can also drop in the chat. We've got folks at Power to Fly looking at the chat box there. So let us know what you would look for. All right. I am looking for their truth. I want them to not give me the answers they think I want. Some folks are good at taking a test, but don't retain anything. Someone else writes, if this person is nurturing and can encourage growth. Beautiful. All right. Honest. Someone else writes honesty, that the candidate really is trying to help. Beautiful. Beautiful. And of course, as we're looking for this in a candidate, we probably have to be aware of it on some level on our own. So hopefully these responses that we're dropping in the chat, we are also trying to practice that as leaders or developing leaders. So someone else here writes, open to feedback and learning. Great, great. Awesome. All right, so we've just got about 4 more minutes left. If there are any last minute questions or reflections, go ahead and drop that in the chat. But otherwise, Matthew Reynolds, I'd love to give these final moments to you. And you can share anything you'd want, but I would also just love to hear your vision of the future. What do you hope? What do you expect? What do you want to share with the future leaders of the world, and also the folks who are currently holding leadership titles or aspiring to hold leadership titles?
Yes. I want us all to be more humanity led. I really believe in that. And I think that a lot of folks, when I say that, don't understand what that is. And I didn't, like, I haven't always had humanity led at the forefront of my mind, right? I believe that one of the things that we've gotten away from, because there's so many things out there, laws and hate groups shouting and screaming, that dehumanizes the other, another person, doesn't allow us to see it. And I think that is being allowed to happen because it's part of our culture. It's part of our corporations. It's part of our school districts. It's part of what the ways in which we maneuver and move through the world, that we actually don't see somebody else's humanity first and foremost. It's all about the numbers, or all about moving so quickly, like you were speaking to before, Mariella, that we don't take the time to really truly see somebody's humanity. And that's why it's so refreshing when I go to some other countries and some places in our country that, you know, people look you in the eye and they say good morning or good afternoon or hello as you're passing by, right? They see each other's humanity first and foremost. I came home, I'll make this really quick. I came home and someone was robbing my home. I had gone over to my post office box and picked up my mail and came back, wasn't gone 15 minutes. And there was someone here, and they came around from the back of my house as I was coming around shouting hello. And at that moment, we made eye contact with each other. And I believe that in that moment, we saw each other's humanity, and it allowed them to drop what they had, jump in their car and drive away, instead of just like barreling through me, causing me bodily harm. I honestly believe that we saw each other's humanity, and it played out the way that it did because of that fact. And so where does that story become analogy or metaphor for other places in our life where we don't see somebody else's humanity, where our language is dehumanizing them, where how many hours we're asking from them is dehumanizing them, where the amount we are paying them is dehumanizing them, where the laws that we are voting to be passed is dehumanizing someone else. So I say to people a lot of the time, I don't subscribe to your ideology. And they go, well, what are you talking about? And I say, because this is the language you used, and it's dehumanizing this marginalized group of people or these people. So we're going to have to find another way to talk with one another. Let's shift that language. Let's really think about that. Mind, body, and spirit balance. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Oh my goodness. What a great way to wrap up this session. We've got so much love happening in the chat saying that they love the session. Great conversation today. So thank you everyone for sticking around. Hope that this has been beneficial for you all as well. be looking out for our emails. We're going to send a rewatch email with a link to this video. Also, you'll have an opportunity to follow our personal projects and to participate and continue to grow with us. So thank you, everyone. And remember your humanity, remember other folks' humanity, and put that into the way that you lead in your work and in your family and your community. Thank you all so much. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Love you.
Love, love.